Welcome to Canada's podcast. Hi everyone, I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's podcast, coming to you today from Toronto. Today we're going to meet Jess Huntington and Emily Ward, the co-founders of the multifaceted talent agency Shine Talent Group. After launching Shine PR in January 2015, the team quickly saw the opportunity to fill a void in what's now called the influencer landscape. Shine Talent Group was built to serve as a resource for brands and marketing PR agencies with one-on-one talent management and campaign strategy consulting. They now have offices in Los Angeles, Toronto, and London. So let's talk to them about their growth and their interesting entrepreneurial journeys. Hi everyone, I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's podcast, coming to you from Toronto. Today we're going to meet Emily Ward, the co-founders of the multifaceted talent management agency Shine Talent Group. After launching Shine in 2015, they saw an opportunity to fill a void in what's now called the influencer landscape. So in 2015, Shine Talent Group was born, and it's to serve as a resource for brands and marketing and PR agency with one-to-one talent management and campaign strategy consulting. They've been very successful, and the team has now expanded to represent social talent globally with offices in LA, Toronto, and London. So Emily, welcome to Canada's podcast. Nice to meet you. And as I normally do, we're all about your journey. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you're sitting here on Zoom in front of me, so to speak. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for having me. So my name is Emily Ward, and I am the co-founder of Shine Talent Group, also the co-founder of our newly formed SaaS program called The Thread. And here to talk to you a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey, because it's been a bit of a wild one since I started.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how did you get here? What was your journey? Where were you beforehand, kind of thing?
We speak to a lot of students through Shine, and I can certainly appreciate how much pressure students are under to make the perfect choices as it feels today. Even my son, who's 13 right now, and he's looking into high schools, they're already starting to start conversations about kids, career journeys and ensuring that they're selecting the right high school to have the right courses, to do the right university course, to have the career, that you want. But more often or not in my journey as well, I found that they don't normally land in the thing that they follow career pathwise, like in school. But what they end up falling into career-wise are things that just are really best suited for them and make them happy. So I originally went to school to do a Bachelor of Fine Arts at York University in dance, because honestly, it just made me really happy when I was younger. And I couldn't imagine when I was like 17, 18, doing anything but going to school to be a dancer. And then I got into the program, which was an amazing program, but soon learned a little bit more about the world and how difficult it might be to be a professional dancer, and decided that I was going to do what I could to learn everything about the industry around dance. So I started volunteering and taking part-time jobs and internships at literally like anything and anywhere that I could in like the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. I worked at the National Ballet. I worked for the Danny Grossman Dance Company. And then I did stumble upon an internship with a PR company called Applause Communications. And they had been the PR agency of record for a lot of like arts and entertainment in Toronto. And I just really fell in love with PR. I loved the balance of working like with the media, pitching stories, kind of raising up these different like events and performances into the spotlight. And then through that, I ended up doing my postgrad at Humber College. They had a arts administration and cultural management postgrad, which was a great like 8-month program. Had a ton of internships with it as well. And although I didn't end up in the not-for-profit arts, it was like a really wonderful crash course just into some general, business acumen that I didn't get, through my BFA. So I learned about marketing and sponsorship and a little bit of accounting and a little bit of law. And I did my 3 internships that landed me into a for-profit position at another great little advertising agency called the AdLib Group. So I was hired there when I was still in school to start up a PR department, which now when I look back is like absolutely wild because I was 22 and I didn't go to school for PR. In fact, I actually didn't get into the PR program at Humber when I had applied for it. But I was offered this position and given like a really great chance through this husband and wife who owned this agency. And I remember them saying to me that they saw something in me, and they said that they really didn't care specifically, what I was going to do with this PR department, but I had to figure out a way to generate income. So under kind of like this safety of working with at an agency and having like the resources, I was kind of given this very like entrepreneurial head start. And I was kind of set off to figure out how to generate like income and how to create service using kind of like the tools and the clients like that were around me. So a very interesting like start. I feel like not a lot of people today like get that kind of opportunity to kind of flex their entrepreneurial muscles so young. Mm-hmm. So there I worked on like a number of different kinds of accounts. But one thing I fell into like truly by a bit of a passion project was I started to represent motivational speakers. One of them was Paul Rosen, who is a Paralympian, who was just like amazing. And both the owner of the agency and we had a soft spot for him and just really wanted to help out his career. And I started to get my feet wet kind of in, the representation space, representing Paul and then a few other people. And then I went and after about working there for about 4 years, decided I wanted to work for a large PR agency, which I did. I worked at DDB for another 4 years under Martine Levy, got some incredible agency experience there, large global clients, and just like learned a ton about working with integrated marketing as well and seeing like how all the different pieces, fall together. But from there, I had my children and I couldn't really imagine a life where I was kind of going back to large agency life. Anybody who has worked for large agencies can appreciate that like you don't have much control some weeks like over schedule. Perhaps today it's a little different, but back then it was still pretty busy. So I decided to take a stab at freelancing. And I really loved it because I was able to kind of rely on like this network that I had built through people I'd worked with at DDB and then also at my previous agency, and work on some great projects on more of a contract basis. But if you've ever freelanced before, you also know that it's pretty nervy to say no to any contract because you don't really know when the next contract is going to be coming up. So I was taking on contracts and taking on contracts and taking on contracts. I had 2 young children at home. And I just had a little bit too much on my plate to figure it out by myself. I had, at that time, my son was 2.5. My daughter was like a newborn. And I really needed to a little bit more support in order to service all these contracts well. So I started asking around to see if there was like, another freelancer out there who I thought, oh, maybe we could kind of like work together and share some workload back and forth. And I kind of missed, working with a teammate. And that's when I met my business partner, Jess. So that was in 2014. I am very lucky that she was here in Canada. She had moved from Australia for a boy. And then she moved to Toronto and was trying to, break into the PR industry. She had a really wonderful PR career behind her. Also working for herself and working for Channel 10, Channel 9 and Channel 10 in Melbourne. So two major television networks doing PR. But when she came to Canada, she found it really difficult to break in because a lot of the PR agencies were saying, your skill set is good, but you have no network. And so much about PR is network. So I met up with her through a mutual friend who had put us in contact. And we honestly started working together like that day, which I think was, May 2014. And we literally have just like never stopped, like from that day forward. We had really great synergy together. And I had never met somebody who I worked, so effortlessly with. And, as much as we challenge each other, I feel like there is such great synergies between us. So the rest is history from there.
So, for the benefit of people listening, tell us a little bit about Shine, but focus more on less about the company and more on the shift in PR, to what's termed influencer marketing.
Sure.
Because I think people have heard the term, but I'm not sure that they really understand it. So, I mean, we've got entrepreneurs listening who have businesses to promote. So tell us what's so big about influencer marketing?
Well, I can speak about it. Also, like back in 2015 when we really started this whole category. So Jess and I, as I shared, we started freelancing together, started booking some larger meetings together, and said, well, we don't want to go into these meetings as two freelancers. We wanted to go in as an agency. So like literally on a whim, we decided to start Shine PR. And then kind of ran into the issue of being like quite competitive in, the boutique PR space. It was easier to get contracts actually as a freelancer where you could work with these PR agencies, harder to be up against them as a boutique PR firm. So we were looking for a way at that time to kind of niche ourselves out. And Jess had seen an agency in Australia who had started to represent social talent. And at that time in Canada, there was like one or two had started to like dabble in it, but there really wasn't anybody who was like wholly focusing on it. And also at that time, there was just, oh my gosh, like an enormous amount of cuts in the media. I mean, many magazines were discontinued. On the PR media relations side, I feel like when we would pitch, which we felt were strong stories that had good visuals, good hooks, a lot of the time we were being like refocused into like advertorial sections, paid media sections, because there just wasn't the airtime or like the print space anymore that there used to be for like free earned editorial. So we were experiencing that issue on the PR side, but like so were the other PR agencies. So when we started to dabble in this influencer space and representing social talent who are people who have like really great Instagram followings, YouTube followings, today TikTok followings. The PR agencies were also struggling at that time to figure out like how they could keep up with the earned media or just awareness campaigns or impressions that they needed to fulfill their metrics. So us, coming out with Shine influencers and trying to be that in between the PR agencies and then also the talent, and find ways for everybody to work together towards these like common goals was incredibly needed. So instead of being these PR agencies competitors, we started to be an asset to them, and helping them, fulfill their campaign goals.
What's been the greatest challenge you faced to date? I mean, you're now in, in LA, in Toronto, in London.
Mm-hmm.
So you've built a decent team. What's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome to do that?
We've been around for like 9 years, and every year is different in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
The keeping up like with, I mean, growth is amazing. Like, and we've had some years of like tremendous growth. But keeping up with growth, I feel like can be a challenge. I feel like we've gone through like a lot of kind of growing pains, that companies talk about. And it feels like sometimes when you just kind of get like your systems and platforms and everything to a certain point to manage it, it changes like again. So I think, one of the ongoing challenges is just, not holding on to anything like too tightly to kind of, be like in flow of how the business wants to develop and where it needs to go to. I think team culture would be something that I would say, I don't know if it much as a challenge, but as like it's a focus, that as the company has evolved, as we've gone from having one team to 2 to 3 to being in office to being like remote, 3 different time zones now. Maintaining like that feeling of team and team culture is incredibly like important to us. I feel like there's without having kind of like that same, feeling of when Jess and I like first started and we're working with our original team, we want to be able to like maintain like that. We want to be able to maintain like that like spirit of the company that it started when it was only like a few of us, when we're now 65 people and growing.
So what is the biggest challenge in the future then? If you've grown from like 2 to 60 plus in, what do you say, 11 years or whatever? What's the big challenge now to get to, 600 people?
I think, we hired a COO just a few months ago, which has been an incredible hire for our team, because I think that, and your listeners, who I'm sure many of them are entrepreneurs as well, can appreciate that there is a certain personality that it takes to start something and to launch it, to get it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a different personality that is like required in terms of like managing and maintaining like that growth. And I can see in terms of like future like challenge or opportunity, it's just that like learning how to take the like spirit of like what we have built and the things that we love like so dearly like about the company, and how to model that for sustainable growth beyond 65 people, how to make that, 150 person company, how to make that, even larger, how to expand, to like new countries and still keep the spirit of the company the same.
So in the time you've been running it, you've bumped it, you've hit some unexpected curves, challenges, whatever you want to call them. Have you found a way to deal with them successfully that you can let people know? I mean, is that kind of wall thing, has it become a process that's enabled you? Because I'm sure you've had to go around it, climb over it a few times on the way to where you are now. Have you found a process that works?
Well, I think that I am very lucky to have a business partner, an equal business partner.
Mm-hmm.
Jess and I have met many business partners like along the way who have different structures of their like relationship of their business foundation. And I think because Jess and I came into the company as, 50-50 partners and both like really, really wanting this like to succeed and having like equal like drive like towards it. I think it has allowed us always to lean on each other in those difficult moments. And I would also say that where other companies have incredibly like defined roles when it comes to business partners, Jess and I never have. There are certain things that she excels at or I excel at that we kind of like lean more towards her or towards myself. But there's probably like every task that I do or that Jess does, we can either of us can take over. So I think that there is just like high mutual respect there, and also like a lot of like support in terms of when things like are challenging. It doesn't all fall onto like one person's decision or perspective. Like there's a lot of support and balance when figuring them out. So I would say, in terms of like our personal like experience, having that strong business partnership and that foundation, relying like on that first and foremost, has allowed us to accomplish like what we have, like I said, 9 years, 3 markets, and growing, which is a no small feat. And then other tips that I would say in terms of like strategies, Jess and I invested like a lot of our time in the very early years into understanding what our vision like for the company was. So we worked with a business consultancy called like Think 8 Institute, and they did a lot of work on just visioning, like articulation in terms of the tone of our business, the content and the structure, like how we wanted to how we wanted to develop this like overall, which actually didn't rely so much on the specific service, but more on like the overall like business feel. And I think because of that, we've always kind of like leaned into like the changing of the industry or what has been presented to us, and not held on to like a specific ideal like for that 1 year, but more kind of going towards like the greater vision of the company.
So, what's the best piece of advice you've received, like mentorship, whatever, that you use on a regular basis?
We've received some great advice over the years. The one that stands out today that I feel like I've repeated to other business owners is to look to grow your business as evenly as possible in terms of your client load. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of agencies out there who have one anchor client, and that anchor client, funds the majority of like their overhead and their staffing. And then they maybe have, a few others that are sprinkled in there. But if you lose that one anchor client, agency folds. And then also if that one anchor client, if there's an imbalance in terms of like the relationship, it's really hard to correct that. So we've thought about that like quite a bit, and very much try to grow our company at the pace of what the company wants as well. I feel like we've never tried to like push the growth beyond what it was ready for. And same things in terms of our client load. Very much try to look at it as being as like a steady and equal, and even as we have like progressed, not limiting anybody's growth, but just being conscious of not having like all efforts towards one category, one single talent, making sure that our resources are spread accordingly.
Taking today into account, what advice would you give somebody that was, thinking about starting up a business, let's say in Toronto just now?
I think that a PR background is the secret sauce, I have to say, because if you know how to market yourself, if you know how to create news about yourself, this is so powerful in early years of any business and so expensive if you don't have the skill set to do it on your own. So Jess and I, coming from PR backgrounds ourselves, we knew how to do media relations for our own company when we had no clients. We knew how to create events and get sponsorships and create, collaborative opportunities where there was no dollar exchanged. And those skill sets to build network through PR. When I look back, I can see how invaluable that was and how beneficial it would be across categories.
I'm smiling because I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some kind of fun rapid fire questions, as we call them. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing instead?
Oh gosh. Oh gosh, I have no idea. That's like and not in a negative way. Like I truly love the job, and I love every
Great,
opportunity
that's good. That's fantastic.
that it's brought. So I'm doing what I love, so it's really hard to imagine doing something else.
Yeah, I know exactly what that says. I'm still doing it, so
Yeah.
it's exactly that. So, what book are you currently reading? What would you recommend, or would you recommend that?
Yeah, I am more of a podcast listener than I am.
Podcast is fine. I was going to say listening to.
Yeah. I still have 2 young children at home, so I feel like times to read books are limited. But I've stumbled upon the Huberman Lab podcast recently, and I love it. I feel like it's a fantastic one, so I've been enjoying that.
Yeah, you have to start listening to Canada's podcast because
I will.
Are you a morning or a night person? With 3 kids, I suspect you're a morning person.
I am a morning person for sure.
If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be, and why would you choose the word?
The one that came to mind when you said that was shiny. And it's like certainly like a word that we use a lot within the company when we're interviewing team members, like, they're shiny. It's bubbly, bright personality.
Yeah. What's keeping you up at night? Apart from kids.
AR.
You don't get to throw kids in there.
AR, accounts receivable.
Tell me.
Notoriously in this industry,
Yeah,
it is
I know.
behind. Yeah.
I think that this has been really, really, really fun. There's just one other question I want to ask you. If you knew what you know now, would you start your business like you did, or would you do it differently?
I think I actually understand why Jess and I started the business how we did now.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense to me now. We were not business plan people, still are not business plan people. But when I look back, and even the fact that one of the things that took off the most for us at the very first was our business Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why just as my skills combined, we really do have like a unique background for understanding like the social space and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that Instagram page that, got us our first like interns and started kind of a bit of a media buzz as well, helped us in terms of validation when we were speaking to our initial talent. So it was a really important component.
Emily, it's been great meeting you. How can people get a hold of you if they listen to this, view it, whichever? How can they get a hold of you?
Yes, website is shinetalentgroup.com. There's a contact section there for both, brands and aspiring talent as well, for talent who are interested in representation. And on Instagram, we are Shine Talent Group.
Thanks for coming on Canada's podcast.
Thank you very much.